Yo, what is up, YouTube? I'm Blitz5, and I am back with yet again another update in Call of Duty, and this is a major one, but we're dealing with strictly a weapon tuning update, so this is all buffs and nerfs to the weapons in Call of Duty World War II, and this is coming right at the end of the Resistance event, which is officially ending on February 27th, and right now for the last weekend, they are doing a bunch of different things. They have double XP, they have prop hunt, demolition, basically everything is out right now for the last weekend and the ending of the event. So make sure you guys are playing, getting your supply drops, and saving all of your bribes to the very end before you use them to get the last of the resistance gear. But anyways, let's get into this update. There was a lot of stuff to cover here. A lot of weapons have been buffed or nerfed. So first, let's start with the SMGs. They have buffed the ADS times and also buffed the ADS in from sprint times. And this is a big deal because Sledgehammer Games is finally addressing the ADS times and sprint out times in Call of Duty World War II. And if you're not familiar, this has been a huge issue in the community for Call of Duty World War II. People have been complaining about aim down sight time and also the sprint out speed. People have been complaining that it's been really slow and it affects the overall gameplay and game style of Call of Duty World War II, saying that, you know, when you have slower sprint out times, then people are more prone to head glitching, playing slower, and it makes the gameplay a lot different from the previous Call of Duties, and it can be frustrating. Me personally, in my opinion, I feel like the game isn't that far off. I mean, a lot of times when you're dealing with aim down sight times, ADS speeds, and sprint out times, they're really talking like milliseconds here, and I really don't think that the average player really notices this stuff, but it was a big enough a deal that this has been like huge on Reddit and in the community, so they're finally fixing this now, but realistically it's only for the SMGs, which you'll see here in a second. So they've buffed the ADS and sprint times across the board for the SMGs. Then for the rifles, they have buffed the ADS transition times, but they have not buffed the sprint times slash sprint out times for the rifles. So SMGs are getting the most love. Then the rifles are just getting base ADS transition time increase. And then for the LMGs, they are buffing ADS times across the board, but they have a note here specifically stating that what their goal was to make the SMGs the fastest, then the rifles, and then the LMGs third. So the rifles are all faster than the LMGs. They didn't want to make that. They wanted to make that distinction. So they say, in other words, there is now more of a distinction between each playstyle, and it makes more sense to the weapon category that obviously SMGs would be the fastest, followed by the rifles, and then followed by the LMGs, which are like the heaviest weapons in the game. And then also to add on to this, they have finally nerfed the ADS transition times for a few of the sniper rifles, these two being the Kar 98K and the M1903. So this is the biggest deal for the Kar 98K because this is really what you see people using when they're quick scoping, and that's been sort of a problem in Call of Duty World War II. It was very easy to aim down sights extremely fast, get multiple shots off, and quick scope. So this is a well-needed change. Kind of unfortunate that it took them 3+ months to fix this, but it's better late than never, and at least they're finally tuning this stuff now. And like I said before, this is a huge tuning update, and I think this is one of the best weapon updates I've seen in the game so far. A lot of good changes, so let's continue on. Now we're getting into some other individual weapons instead of just classes. We have the MP40. They've buffed recoil in an effort to make it more competitive SMG on par with the PPSH-41. So right now, the PPSH is regarded as the best submachine gun in its class, and a lot of times in competitive play, this is really the only submachine gun that you see being used. So to me, any buff for any other submachine guns is great because I like to see more options of people using different things, and the MP40 is already a great submachine gun. So now this is just kind of putting it hopefully on par with the PPSH and hopefully more competitive. Then after that, we have the FG42. So they've nerfed the fire rate so that damage output is more in line with other weapons in its class. To me, this is a little odd because they've already nerfed the FG42 like 2 or 3 times, so I don't really see where this was coming from. I don't see people using this strictly as much as they used to before. When Call of Duty first came out, this was like a must-use gun, and people used their prestige tokens on it, and everybody used it. And now I don't even think I really see people using it anymore, especially with the new assault rifle, the STG-44, the bar. I definitely don't see this one being used as much, but I'm not sure if it's still that competitive in competitive play. So there's got to be some data that they saw that caused them to nerf this. Anyways, moving on. Next is the SVT-40, which to me is one of the most trash guns in the game. I tried using this gun because I got a skin for it early on. I'm like, oh, this looks cool, let me use it. Not only did the skin suck, but the gun was horrific. So here they've buffed recoil in order to make it more manageable to shoot down range and better contrast to the M1 Garand. In my opinion, I feel like a lot of the single-shot rifles in Call of Duty World War II are just not that great. They're just not as efficient as the BAR, the STG-44, all those ones. It's hard to compete against an automatic rifle, and the time to kill just doesn't seem to be as fast. Like, if you're going to use a single-shot rifle, you kind of want to go for risk for reward. The risk is that you need to be accurate, and the reward is that they're extremely powerful, but in this game, it just doesn't really seem to have that kind of kick. So to me, they gave some love to the single-shot rifles, but it's just not really enough. And but on top of that buff, they actually nerfed the hip-fire ratio for the SVT-40. So now, even though it's better shooting down range, it's still very weak up close. And then for the M1A1, another single-shot rifle, I have to admit I've never even tried using this gun in this game. After my experience with the SVT-40, I was kind of turned off from using any of the single-shot rifles. So here they buffed the fire rate in effort to make it more competitive choice amongst the other rifles, but still slightly slower than the Gewehr. So to me, I read that as just use the Gewehr. Then conveniently, the next gun on their list is the Gewehr 43. They state here that they've buffed the fire rate in effort to make it more competitive choice amongst the other rifles, which is basically the same statement, not a ton of information there. And then it still says here that it's slightly faster than the M1A1, so I just don't see the point in using that gun. And they've also buffed the recoil, so it's closer to the M1A1, so you're basically saying just use the Gewehr again. And then they've buffed the clip size to 12 rounds per clip instead of 10, so that also gives you a better advantage of getting more kills before having to reload, which is like another weakness of the single shot rifles. So overall, it seems like the Gewehr 43 is the way to go here. And then we're on to the shotgun. So this is awesome. They've buffed the M30 Luftwaffe drilling, which is my favorite shotgun in the game. I was using this even when it wasn't good and when the game first came out. I just really like the way that it shoots and feels, and it's always fun using a double-barreled shotgun in a Call of Duty game. So anyways, they've buffed the damage per pellet to be on par with the recent sawed-off shotgun changes, so that this shotgun now has more automatic 2-shot kill and slightly more forgiving 1-shot kill, which is awesome. Definitely sweet to get a 1-shot kill with a shotgun. It definitely helps the double-barreled shotgun a lot. They've buffed the shotgun damage range, so now it's more feasible to finish off an opponent who didn't die from a rifle bullet. They've buffed ADS spread to allow for greater accuracy when shooting enemies that are outside the obvious shooting range. So this is all buffed across the board, which is great. And then they also did this with the toggle action. They buffed the clip size from 6 to 8 shots, which is nice. So this gives people a better chance to get 2 or 3 kills with the gun, especially if you're up close. But on top of that, they've nerfed the ADS spread to be on par with the other shotguns besides the M30. So they nerfed the ADS spread, but buffed the clip size, which is great for the toggle action. I think in the previous patch they had kind of buffed some of the damage, so now this seems like it's in a really good place. And I bet the M30 Luftwaffe drilling is actually almost a little OP now, because it was already pretty strong, and they buffed it across the board in 3 different categories with range, ADS spread, and damage per pellet. So that's great for me. I'm definitely going to be using this gun when I hop on Call of Duty next. So that's it for the update. As you watch this video, all these changes have officially gone live in Call of Duty World War II. And just to recap the update, basically ADS times have been buffed across the board for every class and every weapon except for the Kar-98 and the M1903, which got nerfed to decrease quickscoping. And then there's been 7 individual gun changes. Most of these have been buffs except for the FG42, which was nerfed across the board. So anyways, hope you guys found this helpful. Enjoy playing Call of Duty during the double XP event and for the end of the Resistance. And as always, thank you all for watching. I'm Blitz5, and peace out.